What happens when the guy packing boxes in the back turns out to own all 19 warehouses? Hudson Miller stood outside the beige warehouse in a navy hoodie, steel-toe boots, and a fake name tag that read Kyle. He hadn't been here in years, not since he bought the company from the previous owner and decided to scale it. Now it was a chain of 19 warehouses across 4 states, but this one, Warehouse 11 in Ohio, had been getting odd reviews. High turnover, slow fulfillment, a few customer complaints about damaged packages and late deliveries, but none of that is why he was here. He was here because his assistant showed him something strange. Warehouse 11 had the highest employee lateness penalties out of any location. Over 40% of the staff had been written up for extended bathroom breaks, which made no sense. This wasn't a call center. It was a packing and logistics hub. Hudson hated relying on filtered reports. Some managers sugarcoated things. Others buried problems in paperwork. He wanted real answers, so he decided to go undercover. Nobody here had ever met him. Most of the warehouse staff didn't even know what he looked like. His photo had never been in the break rooms. The managers knew his name, but not his face. The disguise helped. He shaved his beard, wore thick-rimmed glasses, and spoke with a slight drawl he picked up from a buddy in Georgia. He was assigned to the packing line. Simple work. Tape, box, label, repeat. It was physically tiring but not unbearable. The first person to speak to him was a fast-talking woman with faded red hair and a deep voice. "You knew?" she asked, slapping a label on a box. "I'm Elsie." "I've been here 6 years. Kyle," Hudson said, nodding. "First day, you'll survive, just don't get caught chewing gum or peeing too long." She gave a half laugh, but it didn't sound like a joke. "What?" She jerked her chin toward the office window above the floor. "Foreman's got a stopwatch." "Swear to God." Hudson followed her eyes. The window looked down over the warehouse floor like a watchtower. A man in a tight black polo stood behind the glass, arms crossed, staring at them. "That's Foreman Darrell. He logs every time someone goes to the restroom. If you take more than 4 minutes, he docks your hours." Hudson blinked. "That's legal." "I don't think he cares," she muttered. "But hey, what are we gonna do? Bills don't pay themselves." The day dragged. The work was fast but not chaotic. Boxes rolled down the line, people moved like clockwork. Hudson noticed something else. People barely talked. The energy was quiet, tense. No one laughed. No music. Not even a radio. Around noon, a young guy about 19 jogged past him toward the restroom. 30 seconds later, the intercom buzzed. "James, your break started 4 minutes ago. Don't make me write it up." Hudson froze. Nobody else reacted. They just kept boxing. Like it was normal. The kid returned 2 minutes later looking pale. Back on the line, Hudson worked next to an older man named Theo. He wore a knee brace and moved slower than the rest. "Hey," Hudson asked, "do they really time people?" Theo didn't look up. "Yeah, they do." "That legal?" "Doubt it. But try finding another job at my age." Later in the shift, Hudson asked to use the restroom. He glanced up. Darrell watched him through the glass. When he returned, Darrell's voice came over the intercom. "Kyle, 2 minutes and 53 seconds. Good, keep it under 3. Hudson's jaw clenched. He wanted to storm up there and tell Darrell exactly who he was, but he wasn't ready. He needed to see more. After the shift ended, he sat in his car and stared at the warehouse. He'd built this place to give people a job they could count on, a place with dignity. What the hell happened? He took a deep breath and texted his assistant. "I'm staying another week. Don't tell anyone where I am." The next morning, Hudson arrived early, well before the floor lights buzzed on. The parking lot was empty except for a single rusted sedan idling near the loading dock. A woman sat inside, eyes closed, head resting against the steering wheel. As Hudson walked past, she startled, straightened up, and rolled her window down. "You with morning shift?" she asked, voice hoarse. "Yeah, Kyle," he said. "Carmen, I usually open up. You can wait inside. Just don't touch the time clock until the buzzer. Darrell checks the punch times." Hudson nodded and followed her in. The warehouse felt colder than yesterday. She unlocked the side door and flicked on the fluorescents, casting pale light across the concrete floor. It took a second for Hudson to realize there was no heat. The air inside hit like a refrigerator. "You guys don't run the heat?" he asked. She pulled her hoodie tighter. "Only upstairs. They say it's to save costs." By 7, the floor filled in. People filed through the metal detector, clocked in, and got to their stations with practiced silence. No one talked. No one lingered. Hudson joined his line and noticed Elsie wasn't there. Instead, a lanky man with deep-set eyes and a faded bruise under his chin stood next to him, silently folding cardboard trays. "You seen Elsie today?" Hudson asked. The man didn't look up. "She called out. Took too long in the break room last night." Daryl told her to clock out and go home. Hudson furrowed his brow. "She was still on shift." "Yeah." The man didn't offer more. Hudson let it go. The pace on the line had picked up. Boxes came faster. Carmen, now working 2 stations over, was shifting between her own orders and helping a younger girl who kept mislabeling packages. Daryl's voice crackled overhead twice in the first hour, correcting people like a drill sergeant. At 10:30, a forklift beeped as it backed up near the loading zone. The driver, mid-40s, wore thick gloves and a back brace. Hudson noticed him pause for a second, one hand on the lever, the other pressed to his side. The man winced, then resumed unloading. "Kyle," Carmen muttered as she passed by. "That's Mike. He's got a hernia, gets worse every week. They won't approve time off." Hudson lowered his voice. "Why doesn't he take medical leave? They said it's not essentially disabling. If he quits, he loses his benefits. So he keeps showing up." As Carmen walked off, Hudson looked toward the office window. Daryl was on the phone, gesturing at a spreadsheet on his monitor. At lunch, Hudson joined a few others at a plastic table in the break room. He opened a peanut butter sandwich, trying to stay low-key. The girl who'd been mislabeling packages sat across from him, nervously picking at her salad. "You're new, right?" she asked quietly. "Yeah, Kyle. I'm Tasha. Sorry I messed up your line earlier. I'm still learning. No worries, you just start 2 weeks ago." "I had to leave my last job 'cause the hours changed. My daughter's autistic, needs a consistent routine." Hudson nodded slowly. "That's a lot to juggle." "Yeah, I told them during the interview I could only do day shifts, but this week they stuck me on nights. I begged Daryl to switch me back. He said I should find a sitter or find a new job." Hudson blinked. "He said that," she nodded, eyes down. "I can't afford daycare, so I switched back to days anyway. Now he's writing me up for insubordination." Hudson clenched his jaw but kept his face neutral. "You ever bring that to HR?" She gave a short laugh. "HR's a voicemail. I've never met anyone from it." After lunch, they returned to the floor. Tasha was pulled aside by one of the shift leads, Dave, a heavy-set man with a clipboard and a permanent scowl. "Label error again," he snapped. "You're at 2 strikes. She just got back," Hudson said, stepping in. Dave turned. "You want to strike too?" Hudson didn't blink. "I just think maybe train her instead of threatening her." "Don't play hero, you're both replaceable." Dave walked off. Tasha looked down, nodded once, and returned to her station. By mid-afternoon, the tension on the floor was suffocating. Hudson's arms ached from the pace. He noticed Carmen limping slightly as she stacked boxes, her right ankle wrapped in some kind of makeshift brace. "You all right?" he asked during a quick lull. "Twisted it last week," she said through clenched teeth. "Told Daryl. He said if I clocked out, he'd mark it as voluntary leave." Hudson exhaled sharply. "That legal? Don't know, don't care anymore. I've got rent due." The rest of the shift blurred into mechanical motion. Hudson kept his head down, but his mind churned. He watched Daryl walk the floor twice, each time barking at someone. He never offered help. He never asked questions. He just pointed, criticized, and walked on. Near the end of the day, the forklift driver Mike collapsed while moving a pallet. It wasn't dramatic. He just slumped forward, one hand still on the wheel. People shouted. Carmen reached him first. Hudson ran over too. "Call someone," Carmen yelled. Dave emerged from the back office, took one look, and muttered, "Get him off the floor, we've got deliveries behind." Hudson stood stunned. "He just passed out." Dave didn't blink. "He's not dead, get him water." "Are you serious? Do you work here or not?" Hudson looked directly at him. You need to call an ambulance. Now, Dave stepped closer. You raise your voice at me again and you can pack your things. Hudson stepped between Mike and Dave. His voice was calm but steel-edged. Touch him or pressure anyone to move him and I'll shut this place down myself. Dave laughed in disbelief. Who do you think you are? Hudson didn't answer. He turned to Carmen. Call emergency services. She hesitated, then pulled her phone. The floor was dead silent. Darryl emerged from the office, eyes scanning the scene. What's going on? He barked. Hudson stood up straight, voice cold. Your employee collapsed. Your shift lead told us to ignore it. Darryl narrowed his eyes. Kyle, is it? Not exactly. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out his real ID. The room held its breath. My name is Hudson Miller. I own this company. Darryl's mouth opened, but no words came. Dave took a step back, face draining of color. Hudson continued. I've spent the past 2 days watching how you run this warehouse, and I'm done watching. He turned to Carmen. Stay with Mike, EMPs are on the way, then to the floor. Everyone go home. You'll be paid for the full shift. Sir, Darryl started, voice tight, I can explain, you'll explain to HR and to the labor board. He paused. You're done here, both of you. Dave opened his mouth to protest, but Hudson cut him off. Don't say another word. You had a man collapse and your instinct was to protect your shipping schedule. He looked around the room. This ends now. Nobody moved for a long moment. Then Carmen gently lowered Mike onto his side as sirens echoed in the distance. Hudson stood by the door, watching as the team slowly exited. Nobody cheered, nobody clapped. They were too stunned, too tired. He didn't blame them. He'd let this fester. That was on him, but it wouldn't stay that way. Not anymore. The next morning, Hudson arrived at Warehouse 11 again, not as Kyle, but as himself. No hoodie. No fake name tag. No disguise. He stepped through the same side door Carmen had unlocked for him 2 days earlier. This time he carried a clipboard and wore a clean button-down. The air inside was still cold, but the silence that greeted him wasn't the usual tense quiet, it was uncertainty. Word had gotten around. The floor crew moved slower than usual, glancing at him, unsure if they should acknowledge him or keep their heads down. He didn't blame them. Yesterday had pulled the floor out from under their feet. Carmen was at her usual station, ankles still wrapped, loading flat boxes onto a cart. She didn't say anything as he approached, just met his eyes for a second, then kept working. You're not on the line today, Hudson said. She blinked but didn't look at him. Didn't think I'd still have a job. You do, she nodded once, then added, that guy Mike Hospital said he'll need surgery. His sister's taking care of him. Hudson made a note on his clipboard. He's getting full medical leave. Paid, we'll cover it. Carmen finally paused. That's not how it's usually done. It is now. She hesitated, then looked at him carefully. You going to be here just for the week? Or are you actually staying long enough to fix this? Hudson didn't answer right away. Depends what I find today. He made his way upstairs, passing the office where Darryl had spent most of his time. The glass had been wiped clean. No one stood behind it now. He unlocked the door and stepped inside. The desk was cluttered with file folders, most of them marked with red tabs. Disciplinary. Attendance. Write-up forms. He flipped through them, scanning the names. Tasha's file was near the top 3 write-ups in 2 weeks, all signed by Darryl. The last one was dated the day before Hudson arrived. He set it aside. Downstairs, a group of workers were gathering near the loading area. With Darryl and Dave both gone, the floor had no supervisor. The shift leads had scattered, some called in sick, others simply didn't show. Carmen was now trying to keep the team organized, but she was limping worse than before. Hudson returned to the floor and approached her again. Who's officially leading this shift? No one, she said without looking. Lena was supposed to. She quit last night. How many people are missing? 2 loaders, 1 sorter, 3 from packing. Hudson rubbed the back of his neck. That's half the shift. Yeah, and the night team left the dock full. If we don't clear it, today's freight gets backed up. He scanned the warehouse. Boxes waited on the conveyor, stalled midway. Pallets of outbound inventory sat untouched. The system was breaking down faster than he expected. "All right," he said. "Get everyone in the break room. 10 minutes, I'll be there." She gave him a hard look. "You're not going to give a speech, are you?" "No, I'm going to ask for help." 10 minutes later, 22 staff stood in the break room, some leaning on tables, others sitting on upside-down plastic bins. A few stared at him with open distrust. One older man in a faded thermal shirt kept his arms crossed, jaw tight. Hudson stepped to the front. "I'm not here to just fire people and disappear. I built this company to give people jobs worth having. Clearly, I've failed at that here at least. And I don't expect any of you to trust me just because I show up in nice clothes and say the right things." The man in the thermal shirt spoke. "Then why are you here now? Why not last year?" "No excuse," Hudson said. "I should have come sooner." A woman near the microwave crossed her arms. "We've had complaints for months. HR doesn't listen. You think one visit is going to fix what they ignored for years?" "I don't," Hudson said calmly. "That's why I'm not leaving." The room fell quiet again. "I need to appoint a temporary shift lead, someone who knows the work and the people. It won't be permanent, but we need structure to keep things moving while we rebuild." Carmen shifted. "We're short 6 people. Doesn't matter who leads if we can't process orders. I'm pulling in staff from nearby warehouses, but that buys us time, not trust. So I'm asking who's willing to step up and help hold this place together while we fix it?" No one answered for a moment, then a voice from the back. "Only if we're allowed to make decisions." It was Elsie. She had a wrap on her wrist and looked like she hadn't slept, but her eyes were sharp. Hudson nodded. "You'd have authority to schedule rotations, approve breaks, and assign tasks within reason. I'll be upstairs reviewing everything Daryl and Dave left behind." "And if we say no?" she asked. "Then I do it alone," Hudson replied. "But I think you deserve better than that." Elsie glanced around the room. "I'll do it. But I want to train Jasmine. She's faster than I am now. I'm not sure how long my wrist holds up." Hudson looked at Jasmine, a quiet woman in her late 20s who had barely spoken during the meeting. She looked startled. "You comfortable with that?" he asked her. She hesitated. "I guess I'd try." "That's enough," Hudson said. "You'll shadow Elsie starting today." He turned to the group. "Everyone else do what you can. No write-ups, no threats. You need a break. Take one within reason. If anything's unclear, come find me." As the shift broke, people moved differently, not relaxed but less guarded. Carmen returned to the line with Jasmine and Elsie. Hudson climbed back to the office and opened the computer Daryl used. He expected a mess, but what he found was worse. Over the past 6 months, Daryl had quietly inflated the productivity metrics. He'd submitted false numbers to regional boxes packed per hour, errors reduced, turnover minimized. Supervisors in other locations had been told to model after Warehouse 11, but nothing matched the raw data. In fact, error rates here were twice as high as the company average. He opened the company's internal complaint system. Dozens of unread tickets, harassment claims, injury reports, even a formal grievance signed by 9 workers. Daryl had marked them all resolved without action. Hudson leaned back in the chair, stunned. Then he opened the security footage archives. It confirmed everything. Daryl pacing the floor, clipboard in hand, following Carmen's limp. Dave cornering Tasha beside the lockers, raising his voice while she stood frozen. Mike lifting crates with visible pain while no one intervened. Every incident was recorded and ignored. By late afternoon, Hudson came back downstairs. He found Jasmine at the packing line, adjusting the scan speed on the label printer. "You figured that out fast," he said. She shrugged. "Elsie showed me earlier. The old setting was slowing us down. You comfortable leading tomorrow?" She hesitated. "I don't want to be a supervisor forever. I just want to work in peace." Hudson nodded. "Then that's the goal. Build a system that lets you." Elsie passed by, rubbing her wrist. "You're going to need more than 2 temps. The night crew left again, said they won't come back without hazard pay." "I'll handle it," Hudson said. He stayed long after shift change. After the crew clocked out, he walked the warehouse alone. checking the conveyor belts, inspecting the lockers, studying the equipment tags. He found a stack of unused first aid kits buried behind a broken shelf. He found broken heating duct fans unplugged and marked non-essential. He found a wall calendar with every employee's name color-coded red for problematic, green for efficient. More than half were red. That night he made a list. Warehouse 11 didn't need tweaks, it needed surgery. And he was done hesitating. By the end of the week, Hudson had converted the upstairs office into a temporary leadership hub. Not for managers, but for rebuilding trust. He kept the door open, the blinds up, and a folding table in the corner with coffee, ibuprofen, and granola bars, small things, but the kind no one else had bothered to provide before. The first order of business was staffing. Hudson drove to 2 nearby warehouses, both with stronger reputations and healthier shift cultures, and met with their site leads. He didn't send an email. He went in person. He asked for 4 volunteers who could rotate in short term to help Warehouse 11 stabilize. Not just anyone, people who were respected by their peers, who could reinforce a healthier rhythm without barking orders. By Monday, 2 shift leads from Warehouse 8 and a logistics tech from Warehouse 5 arrived. They didn't wear badges or titles. They worked alongside the team. Carmen noticed first. "These folks don't talk like bosses," she said, checking labels beside the new tech. "They ask before they correct." "They're not here to oversee," Hudson said. "They're here to listen and guide." She nodded but didn't say more. Her ankle was still stiff, and she'd begun swapping tasks every few hours to pace herself. Hudson assigned her to training new hires later that week, a role that let her lead without straining physically. Meanwhile, HR arrived in person for the first time in over a year. Hudson had requested it directly. No more voicemails, no more ticket systems. 2 representatives set up in the back conference room and began private interviews with every employee who wanted to speak. It took 2 full days. When they finished, they handed Hudson a packet of exit interviews, internal complaints, and a summary of their findings. "Some of this could trigger legal exposure," one of them said flatly. "You had systemic neglect here." "I don't care about protecting the company," Hudson replied. "I care about rebuilding it." "Then you'll need to clean house." He already had. Within 72 hours of the incident with Mike, both Daryl and Dave had been formally terminated, not suspended, not repositioned, fired with cause. Their access revoked, their names removed from any internal system. The labor board had been notified of disciplinary practices that violated wage laws. Hudson filed the report himself, but removing the problem wasn't the same as fixing the damage. On Wednesday, he called a floor-wide meeting. No podium, no script, just folding chairs in the break room and a whiteboard near the vending machine. "I've read your interviews," he said. "I've seen the footage. I've met with HR, legal, and our compliance team." He paused, making eye contact with as many people as he could. "We failed you." "I failed you, and I'm not going to ask for forgiveness. I'm going to show you change." He turned to the board. A list of 5 items was written in thick black marker. First, bathroom monitoring is banned, permanently. No tracking, no timers, no deductions. If anyone enforces otherwise, report it to me directly. He crossed out the word bathroom on the board with a red slash. Second, injury reporting and medical leave will be handled through a new third-party provider. No more internal approvals. If you need time off, you'll get it. And if you're hurt on the floor, we'll take care of you, not penalize you. He moved to the next item. Third, we're implementing a rotating lead system. That means no one person holds unchecked authority. Every 30 days, leads will rotate. And every rotation includes feedback from the team working under them. He glanced around. Several heads nodded cautiously. Jasmine sat in the back, arms crossed over her chest, but her eyes were fixed on the board. Fourth, HR will be on site once a week. You'll talk to a person, not a voicemail. The final item was circled. Fifth, wages. This facility will begin a phase in wage increase over the next 60 days. It won't happen overnight, but the goal is to bring everyone to a livable standard in line with our top-performing warehouses. A murmur passed through the room. Someone near the window let out a slow breath. Another rubbed their face as if unsure they'd heard right. He didn't wait for applause. There was none. That wasn't the point. After the meeting, he returned to the floor, not to observe, to work. Hudson packed boxes beside Jasmine for 2 hours, then moved to loading with Elsie. He didn't announce it. He didn't wear a different uniform, he just stepped in. And when someone asked why the owner was still lifting pallets, he only said, "Because the job's not finished." The next day, a new hire named Omar started. He looked about 20, quiet, eyes darting around as if waiting for something to go wrong. Carmen was assigned as his trainer. Hudson watched from the corner as she walked him through the labeling process. She didn't raise her voice. She asked questions instead of giving orders. At one point, Omar fumbled a scan. She didn't correct him. She asked, "What do you think went wrong?" and waited. By Friday, the line was running at 80% capacity, still below target, but climbing fast. The crew was lean but functional. No one was shouting. No one was skipping breaks. The heaters were fixed and the first aid kits were stocked and clearly marked. Hudson replaced the glass in the office window with frosted film, not to hide, but to make sure no one upstairs could ever surveil the floor again. At the end of the week, Jasmine approached him near the lockers. "You really going to keep showing up?" she asked. "I'm not leaving," he said. She nodded slowly. "I told my sister I was quitting. Are you?" "No," she said. "Not yet," he said. Nothing else. Neither did she. That night, Hudson stayed late again. Not because he had to, but because he wasn't done. He walked the floor alone, checked the loading dock, then stepped into the break room. Pinned to the corkboard was something new. A sheet of paper with names written in different pens. Not signatures, just names. Elsie, Carmen, Omar, Tasha, Theo, Jasmine. At the top, a scribbled title, "People Who Stayed." Hudson didn't touch it. He turned off the lights, locked the door behind him, and left Warehouse 11 the same way he'd arrived. But this time, he didn't feel like a stranger.